Next up, the Suffolk County District Attorney race is heating up. Boston City Councilor and former public defender Ricardo Arroyo announced his run last month, going up against interim District Attorney Kevin Hayden, who announced he'll be seeking a full term as well. Ricardo Arroyo joins me now. It's great to see you, Councilor. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Why do you think the voters of Suffolk County should fire interim DA Hayden and hire you?
I think we made a decision in 2017 as a county to move in a more progressive direction, one that addresses racial disparity and class disparity in our criminal justice system. And I think Rachel Rollins has done so much in 3 years to move us to a more equal justice in the Commonwealth. And I think decidedly I am the candidate who will continue that legacy and continue to do that work.
And is the suggestion that Kevin Hayden doesn't care, in your estimation, about these racial disparities that you're describing as much as you do?
I wouldn't say that he doesn't care. I would say that this matters about policies. My life has been dedicated to systemic justice. I understand that to change systems, it requires having policies and implementation. And frankly, I would say that I have planned out policies. I actually have policies on the table to continue that work, but I also am the only candidate in this race who has unequivocally stated that I support the policies Rachel Rollins has put in place and that I will not disrupt those.
And when you say the policies of Rachel Rollins, most viewers, the first thing that comes to mind are the 15 lower level criminal offenses that she said she would not prosecute. I assume you're referencing that. But when I asked interim DA Hayden about that, he said he believes deeply in diversionary programs and will probably be doing much of the same thing, even though he wouldn't formally give a stamp of approval as such to her specific program. That's not enough.
No, that's definitely not enough. Here's the deal. There are 13 courts at any given time, including the Supreme Judicial Court and the Appellate Court that the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office is operating in. Unless you have written policies like Rachel Rollins did here with the 15, and I am in fact referencing the 15 do not charge list. I actually helped create that do not charge list. I was one of the people at the table when that was created. What we talk about that allows us to have policies that ADAs, assistant district attorneys in those courtrooms, can then base their decision-making on. It's not what my decision-making is on, because I can't be in every single one of those courtrooms as the district attorney, neither can he. And so when he says that he's not going to have a written list or a written discharge list, but rather he'll look at each case by case, the reality is we get 20 to 25,000 cases in the Commonwealth, and specifically in Suffolk County. You need written policies to address that. I'm the only one who's pledged to continue.
But to be clear, I don't want to beat this too long, but one last thing. Rachel Rollins herself told me when she was DA, it was a rebuttable presumption. It was not an absolute. In fact, some of those 15 crimes were prosecuted under her.
In fact, 1 in 4. And so the reality is the process, and again, this goes back to the written format, you had to go to a supervising ADA or a chief of that district court and say, hey, I think this is worthy of breaking from this list. And so without the list, you don't have that built in.
Councilor, the other night when Kevin Hayden was here, he mentioned something called a rapid indictment program he's initiating, add resources so that gun crimes can be expedited. Do you support that initiative?
Of course, but the reality is the rapid indictment process deals with cases that have already been brought before the courts. So what I am actually proposing is a task force that's focused on non-fatal shootings. Right now, we have clearance rates in the past 5 years that can go anywhere from 4% to 17% on non-fatal shootings. The Department of Justice did a study using the Boston Police Department's data and found that non-fatal shootings, as you would guess, lead to fatal shootings. And we should focus more resources on solving those and putting that together. I believe we can put a task force together at the District Attorney's Office to do that, and I seek to do that.
The gang database is very controversial. Kevin Hayden said that he would like it to be much more narrowly tailored. You want to dump it. There are some, not the two of you, but some who, well, maybe Kevin Hayden says, but I've heard others say it's got to be narrowed, but it's helped solve murders. You don't buy that.
BPD hasn't told me that. So just to be clear, we've had this is not a new issue for me. For several years, I've been going up against the gang database just to prove if it's effective or not. It takes incredible resources, both in dollar amount and in human resources. Our police officers are surveilling nonviolent crime. Frankly, not surveilling crime at all. They're watching people play basketball and they're deciding or with who they play with or who they see at school. The federal appellate court came back with a decision on this that said that, frankly, that took the gang task force, the gang database to task and essentially said it was indiscriminate. And I have said the same. And so the issue with this list is that in the last year, they added under 100 names. The problem is that list has 3,500 names on it using the old format for putting these names on there. And you can't have focused deterrence with a non-focused list. And frankly, there's some real questions to civil liberties. There's some real questions in the way that this has collateral consequences in immigration court. And so I do not support the gang database. No.
You know,
and when I did ask, just to touch the point you brought up, we did ask BPD directly. We had the Boston Regional Intelligence Center before the City Council in March of last year. We asked them directly, can you trace the gang database to solving or preventing any crime? And the answer was no.
You mentioned Rachel Rollins. I would argue that at least as significant action from her time was her Integrity Review Bureau that led to the release of men, almost exclusively of color, who had spent more than 20 years in jail. The most recent initiation was the Stephen Pena case, 28 years in jail. The judge, when he ordered a hearing on the question of a new trial, said there had been prosecutorial and police misconduct. When I asked Kevin Hayden about whether he'd agree to Mr. Pena's request for a new trial, he said he wanted to hear back from his Integrity Review Bureau to see what their conclusion was. Would you, as DA, consent to a new trial for Mr. Pena?
Yes, and I've already come out the day that came out, that the decision was made by the judge to release Mr. Pena, who is now at home. I would have assented to that new trial. I would do that now. And I think one of the things that's gone unsaid on this is that the judge made it very clear that there was prosecutorial misconduct in this case, that there might have been even some police misconduct in this case in the way that evidence was handled. One of the things that I have seen frequently is that when we have these cases, we talk about Mr. Pena and obviously how great it is that somebody who has done time, undeservedly so, is being released. But what we don't talk about is accountability for the prosecutors and the officers who led to that wrongful prosecution in the first place, and so in that wrongful conviction. And so I would like to see action on that. I would like to see folks referred to the bar if they have, in fact, perpetrated fraud on Mr. Pena in terms of how they conducted their Brady discovery.
Ricardo Arroyo, I literally have 20 seconds left. There was a story in the Globe this morning about anti-vaxxers demonstrating at your mother's house. Even if people don't support Mayor Wu's change that would limit such demonstrations in neighborhoods from 9 to 9, they surely, I assume, would support it when it's directed at somebody's mother. Your colleague, though, Julia Mejia, said, I'm concerned about the unequal enforcement of this ordinance on organizers of color. Quickly, tell me why she's wrong.
I think one of the things that we got to look at here is that if the Boston Police Department wants to unequally enforce a law, there's several on the books that can do that right now. They could have done that with noise ordinances. They can do that with disorderly conducts. There's a number of different laws in which they could do that. They don't need this one to do that. The reality is this allows people to protest from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's 12 hours out of a 24-hour day if they wanted to do it in a public setting. And frankly, nobody's parents or family members should be targeted. And I'm grateful for the outcry that stirred when they went after my mother. But this law, to me, is narrowly tailored and allows people to continue to do what it is they seek to do, but allows at least some grace for neighbors in the early morning hours.
Ricardo Arroyo, I really appreciate your time. Good luck. Hope to see you a lot in the coming months. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.